We've got big updates around Iran that we need to talk about. We're starting with the news that Iranian authorities have provided death tolls for the first time since the protests broke out, and it's much higher than previously reported. Where today you had an unnamed Iranian official telling Reuters that the total number of people who have been killed in the protests is 2,000, including security personnel. But also, that official didn't give a breakdown of who they said had been killed. Now, with that, there are plenty of reasons to be skeptical of the death toll being given by Iranian officials. But a very big notable thing is that you also had human rights activists in Iran, a US-based monitoring group that's been accurate in the past, updating their data today and reporting that same figure, saying that at least 2,000 have died. Right, a huge jump from the roughly 500 that they estimated yesterday. And this new figure, it is devastating, it is horrifying, and as the Associated Press reported, the number of dead dwarfs that in any other round of protests or unrest in Iran in decades and recalls the chaos surrounding the country's 1979 Islamic Revolution. Also with this, you had HRA reporting in an earlier update that at least 10,721 people have been arrested. That's actually also relevant to the death toll because today you had human rights groups now reporting that Iran is set to execute the first protester tied to the latest wave of unrest. According to the group Iran Human Rights, the man in question is 26-year-old Erfan Soltani, and he's set to be sentenced to death by hanging tomorrow. And with that, you're seeing US outlets reporting that the protester has been charged with waging war against God, which is a real crime punishable by death in Iran. And while you have many, including another rights group calling for international support to stop the hanging, right, claiming that the demonstrators' only crime is calling for freedom for Iran, unfortunately and horrifically, this is very likely going to just be the first of many executions. But as we talked about yesterday, even before the protests, Iran has dramatically escalated executions over the last year. And of course, while all of that's going down in Iran, there are a few important updates that are happening here in the US that we have to touch on. Yesterday you had Trump announcing on Truth Social that he was imposing a 25% tariff on any country doing business with Iran, effective immediately. And because there weren't a ton of details, you had experts speculating that he's likely relying on the same act that he used to impose other sweeping tariffs, though notably legal challenges to those measures are currently before the Supreme Court. But then also beyond that, the fact that these tariffs are set to go into effect immediately is incredibly significant. Because normally when tariffs are imposed, they're delayed with a built-in lag time, so importers have enough time to change their plans and avoid the new harsh fees. And so here you have experts saying that immediate tariffs would be incredibly disruptive to international trade because goods from many of the countries impacted here are already en route to the US. And so with all this, you have a former chief economist for the International Monetary Fund explaining this policy is, quote, profoundly self-harming for the US and it will not change the Iranians' behavior one iota. Also, as far as which countries will be impacted, there are a good number, but the nation probably most significantly affected is going to be China, because China is actually Iran's largest trading partner by far, with exports totaling $22 billion in 2022. And a large chunk of those exports is actually oil. China buys 90% of all of Iran's oil exports. In fact, for China, between Venezuela and Iran, that's 20% of their oil imports. In Venezuela, they're only 4% of that. Right? And for Iran, we're talking nearly $2 billion a month and at least 5% of Iran's entire economic output. And so unsurprisingly, all of this has China fiercely opposing the new tariffs, and a spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in Washington describing the taxes as illicit, adding that the country will take all necessary measures to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests. But of course, it's not just China that's going to be impacted. India is also a big importer of Iranian goods, and other major trading partners include Turkey, Iraq, and the United Arab Emirates. But also, I've got to say, the tariff announcement is not the only important message that Trump has delivered in a super cryptic Truth Social post over the last 24-ish hours. But you also had Trump writing, Iranian patriots keep protesting, take over your institutions, save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. Make Iran great again. And so with that, you had many going, okay, what do they mean? They'll pay a big price. What does he mean? Help is on its way. Is that confirmation or a continued threat of military intervention? Because like we talked about yesterday, Trump and White House officials have said that they are leaving the door open for that option, but they want to pursue diplomacy first. But then with that, you have to ask, if he's going for diplomacy, how do you do that if you cancel the meetings with the officials? And so that's just another reason you have people with eyes on Iran with bated breath wondering what is going to happen next.